We have another great question coming out of our chess.com Improvers Club. The user basically mentions they had a winning game around move 20, and they want to know what is the correct mindset in finding great moves in a position, and how should you analyze and evaluate as you play a game? Wonderful question, and it reminds me of the idea of the most difficult game to win is the one game, W-O-N, the one game. And I think all of us, if you get enough experience playing, you could write an entire book or several volumes entitled, I Was Winning. I've blown so many winning positions that I've maybe blocked from my memory. We've all been there. And so we're going to focus on that. And in this game, our member of the Improvers Club had the black pieces, playing a daily game, which is a great way to work on thought process. You know, there's not a lot of time scrambles, you know, the clock isn't ticking down to seconds. And here, white, you know, I understand is feeling a little bit of pressure, right? The knight is pinned to the king. So white might think, hey, I'd love to castle kingside, but then I lose my knight there. So totally get the concern there. And what I would recommend here is maybe moving the other knight into the center, and that supports the other knight. We create kind of an infinity knight circle here, and then you can think about castling out of harm's way. Now, what white did in the game was say, yeah, I'm kind of worried about my pinned knight, so I'm going to castle long, castle queenside. And one thing to know is when you castle short on the king side, your king is immediately in its house, doing its thing, guarding all the pawns, which in turn shield the king. When you castle long, or on the queen side, notice it takes one more move to fully move into your house, so to speak. And because the rook moves away, the corner pawn there is vulnerable or loose. And I'm also a little bit nervous about moving into a house with a big hole in the roof, right? I don't like the fact that that pawn is already moved. So here, black did a great job taking advantage of the space that rook left behind and simply captured the pawn. And here we're threatening a lot of ideas against the king. And so this feels very uncomfortable for white. And here white played queen to h3. Now, of course, we're going to look at ways to attack the king, but we don't want to like rush into a move like this because it feels like it might be mate, but then the knight blocks. And we don't have a real follow-up here, meaning our queen is not going to be able to win the game on its own. We need all of our pieces to work together here as much as we can. So the other thing, going back, white just played queen to h3. A big thing I want us to do here is always ask, what would my opponent play next? What is that queen looking at, right? And sure enough, queen h7 is a big problem. That would be mate if we allow it. So I like what black did here. Simply push the pawn. Now the queen is unable to jump over the pawn to attack our king, and the pawn is giving the knight its eviction notice. Get out of here, right? So black kicks out the knight, and now takes the pawn. Awesome move, attacking the queen. And here black is in the driver's seat, putting a lot of pressure on white, threatening to win the queen. And if the queen slides to the side, attacking the knight, look out for not only a fork here, a fork meaning attacking the king and the queen, it also is mate. The king can't escape the attack, right? Smothered by its own pieces, the knight is attacking from above, and the queen has these squares covered. So lights out, it's mate. So really easy to lose the game immediately, but to white's credit, they played queen to g4. So this moves the queen out of harm's way, attacks our knight, also is guarding that e2 square, so our knight can't just jump into the action to attack the king. And this is one of the most important moments when to answer that question about mindset, right? How do we find winning game? How do we find winning moves, right? How do we win the game? And here, the first thing, understand your opponent. What do they want to play and why, right? They're attacking our knight, really annoying. And notice the queen is lined up with this pawn, and behind it, our king. So the pawn is actually pinned. And anytime something is pinned, look at what it's no longer protecting. So a knight could jump in here and would be completely immune from capture. The pawn would not be able to capture the knight because that would expose the king there. So with all that in mind, the big threat, our knight is hanging, right? And I would say, a majority of the time, the best move is understand what your opponent wants and don't let them do it, right? In this case, black played knight d5, a very good move. You're not hanging a knight, you're keeping your queen, or you're keeping your knight safe from the queen, and you're maybe eyeing a fork square, attacking the queen and the rook. So definitely a good move. Nothing wrong with that. But as we're working on our mindset, one big thing I want to insert is we start out by understanding when we're on the move, don't stress out, figure out what does your opponent want to play next? And okay, our knight's hanging. That's what they want. Then before we kind of jump to step 3, which is reacting, in between, let's sandwich a question. Do I need to react, right? Do I need to react to my opponent's idea? And one way to answer that is to look for your own attacking ideas, right? We're knocking on the king's door. We're so close to just winning the game. And the problem, though, is the queen in isolation is unable to win the game, right? Like I mentioned before. We need to figure out how to get more pieces or pawns into the action and work together. So love to play knight e2, but that loses our knight. I'd love to attack the king this way, but hey, there goes our knight again. The pawn's guarding it. But look, I have one attacker and one defender against that pawn. And, if I can make this pawn disappear, well, then I would love to invite my rook to help attack the pawn. That's not possible. On the other hand, our knight's hanging, so let's not forget that. But how can I invite another unit to the attack? Can I add more pressure to that pawn? And by asking that question, we can find the absolutely crushing d3. Look at that. We're threatening mate. We're also supporting the knight there, right? So knight e2 could be annoying. That way, if the queen captured the knight, we'd win the queen, which would be cool. But more to the point, we're threatening mate. And there's no real way to deal with it, right? You could attack the king. I can't take your knight there because of the pin. Can't expose my king to the queen's attack. But once I get a slide to the side, now what? Mate is still in the air. If you take me, now I'll happily take back, and that's mate. And what else? Well, if the pawn moves forward, now the pawn kind of alley-oops, lobs up the ball, slam dunk there with the queen, delivering mate. And basically, there's no way to escape. It's lights out. And that's the danger of castling into a weakness, right? That was not a safe house. That was not where you wanted to build your future as white's king. And so d3 would be absolutely crushing. Now, admittedly, that's not the easiest move to find, but you can find it, again, with that powerful question. Do I need to react? And most of the time, the answer is yeah, you should react, right? Don't lose pieces. Don't allow your opponent, in that other example, to checkmate you, when the knight and the queen were attacking here. We reacted. But by asking, do I need to react, it creates kind of a little bit of a pause or a hesitation. And then you look for other ideas. So d3 would have been lights out, but black found a good move, centralized the knight, threatening a fork there. And after knight f6, we have to give white credit. White, on the defense, is in trouble. One way to try to defend is remove attacking pieces, right? Try to trade down a little bit. And that's exactly what white's doing. The knight attacks the king and is ready to take its rival there in the center. And so when the king moves away, now the knight captures the knight. Good move. And here black recaptured with the pawn. Really good move. We capture with this pawn because now the c-file is open for business. We can get all of our pieces working together. So in the game, black is doing really well. White captured a pawn, and the queen is now kind of observing that endangered area near the king. And here black played rook f to c8. Really good move, inviting another piece into the attack, and now we're threatening checkmate. So when we're talking about a winning mindset or how to find winning moves, the first thing I talked about was psychological. Do I need to react, right? Very powerful question. The other thing that we're going to focus on is the power of coordinating our pieces, getting our pieces to work together. Like I said, one move ago, the queen is powerful, but is unable to attack alone. But once you start coordinating your pieces, right, you combine the forces, now we're threatening something pretty serious, mate and one, right? So by coordinating just two pieces, right, queen and the rook, ready to hang out there in c2, we're ready to win the game. And here white makes another instructive mistake. When you're under pressure, don't be afraid to trade pieces. Just like white went like here and traded off the knights, removing a key attacker. This queen is such a pain for white. A really powerful move, and I know people hate to do it, is trade queens. I know the queen is a really fun attacking piece, but hey, the queen is a really fun attacking piece, right? It goes both ways. Here you're trying to trade off the queens. Here black should probably avoid the trade, keep it complicated. But if black trades, well then all of a sudden there goes the attack and the king is feeling pretty safe. No huge problems here, right? So that would have been a better move, queen to b2, and force black to make a tough choice and keep the game going, keep more pieces on the board, keep trying to attack, right? When you're attacking, try to keep it complicated. When your opponent is putting you under a lot of pressure, think about simplifying and see if that helps you kind of ease your burden as the defender. What happened in the game though, when in doubt, do not push a pawn. White understood, hey, mate's a problem, I'm going to move this pawn. But the problem is this pawn, well, is still a problem, meaning it's pinned, it's unable to capture anything here or here. That would expose the king. So that's going to be a target, whole bunch of pressure there. And now this pawn is also a little bit weak. And by pushing this pawn, you've opened up the second rank. So this king is feeling really, really vulnerable. So black played a great move, said, hey, I'm going to open up lines. I'm going to take that pawn. And when you take back, if you want, I recommend pause the video. Put yourself in our Improvers Club members' shoes. What would you play here as black? Well, once you had enough time to think about it, let's talk about what I think black should do here. Now, you might say, hey, there's a pawn, I can take that pawn, which is true. But the thing about taking the pawn, you got to look out. Now you're opening up pieces against you, meaning you captured a pawn, but you opened up a line, right? And you're not attacking over here, right? Your king is on the king's side. White's king is on the other side of the board, over here. So I don't want to capture a pawn and open up lines for my opponent. The other thing, the rook's sleeping. It's not really doing anything. White's pieces aren't really coordinated. And when you ask yourself, like, how do I win the one game? One of the reasons you're not winning right away, unless your opponent's just like, stalling, is there's some kind of issue with either the defense is working together, like the pieces are gelling and hanging tough, and or one of the two, or combined, is your pieces aren't working together as well as they need to. Meaning, look at the rook. It's doing nothing here. The bishop is pointing on the opposite side of the board, but that's not where you're attacking. Your queen is looking for reinforcements, right? How do we attack the king? Well, the rook is doing an excellent job joining the queen and attacking this pawn, right? The pawn is pinned. So a move that's really easy to miss, but is really strong, is when you notice things are pinned, like this pawn, PP on the PP, put pressure on the pinned piece, or in this case, put pressure on the pinned pawn. The pawn can't move, so we can move our bishop here. Almost like scratching your nose. Feels like, what am I doing? I feel that itch. But truth be told, the pawn cannot capture the bishop there because you can't expose your king to the rook's attack. The other thing we're doing, so we're putting 1, 2, 3 attackers on that pawn. By moving the bishop away, now we've opened up the b file. And that way we can invite another piece, our rook, into the attacking party. And that way, once we do this, we will have 3 pieces and then a 4th piece all working together to attack the king here. And here, if white says, okay, I'm under a lot of pressure, this queen is killing me, let's trade. Here black has, well, the burden of several good ideas. One thing you can do is say, okay, fine, you want to trade? I'm going to take you. You take me, I'll take you. And when the smoke clears, I'm up, well, 2 pawns. One of those pawns is a passed pawn. That's kind of a rocket. You can shoot up the board with the rook supporting it. And the other thing is, the king is under attack. We can move here, and the king is feeling really, really exposed. So this is an endgame I would be happy to play as black, and that would be my preference. But for those of you who are maybe a little more bloodthirsty in the audience, after queen to b2, you can think about moving your queen here, but then you'd say, well, maybe they'll try to trade queens again. Or you could back it up and move to a5. And this way, you're keeping your options open. Tons of active pieces here. And let's say white, attacks your pawn or makes some kind of move like that. Well, now we invite another piece into the party. Rook a to b8. The pawn is still pinned. We have all of this pressure. And this is how we win games. Get everyone on the court, get every piece into the action, and help them live the best life they can. And so here, black is just killing it. Like, what is white even going to do, right? You move your queen away. Well, now there's queen a3. King is unable to move because of our rook. King is trapped by its own pieces, right? And the only thing he can do is block. And how do we feel about capturing a queen now? Absolutely. That's mate in one. So this is an example of mindset. We need to keep our pieces active here. And that's the way you kind of end the resistance for your opponent. How do you keep them from feeling optimistic, right? How do you shut the game down? And this way, just crash the court, get all your pieces on the board, and black is going to win this game pretty quickly, I think. So anyway, not the easiest thing to find. And in the game, black had another idea. I think black's idea was, well, what if I could just kind of double my rooks, right? Get both rooks on the c file. And so black made a move that makes sense, but maybe wasn't the best move. Rook to c6. And I think black's idea was to double the rooks here and to put a lot of pressure down the c file. And if you're going to do that, I would recommend talk to your pieces, right? Ask your pieces how they feel. And in this case, if you ask the bishop how it feels, not great. It's blocked by its rook and a pawn. So the bishop isn't happy. If you move here, the bishop still has a lot of scope, and this rook is ready to create a battery, the rook battery down the c file, and everybody's kind of gelling, working together. So by moving the rook here, this gives white a chance to get back in the game. And white plays rook h to f1, awakens the rook and puts pressure here. And now black understandably was like, well, you're threatening my pawn. I'm a little worried about that, so I'm going to defend it. And that's not a bad idea. You don't want to give your opponent free stuff, right? But one thing is to ask, what are my options? I don't want to defend with my king, right? It's an okay move if I have to play it, but I'd rather not because I'm defending with a piece that's also a target. It's got a bullseye on its back. Checkmate ends the game, so we're going to get our king under some pressure here. So I would ask, hey, how else can I defend that pawn? What if I play rook c7? Really hard to play psychologically. You moved here, and then the elevator goes back down, and you're admitting, hey, maybe I didn't play the best move in the world, but that's okay. That's the hardest thing to do is kind of admit a mistake here and just be like, okay, fine. I'll move my rook here. I'll guard this pawn, and then I still have my plan. Put pressure on that pinned pawn, maybe play bishop d5, and our pieces are starting to work together. So notice here, white is able to turn the game around by coordinating the pieces. The rook is attacking the pawn, the king is defending. Hey, that bishop is loose, and now white plays a really, really scary move. Queen to d7, invading our territory, attacking the bishop there, and more importantly, knocking on the king's door, ready to take that pawn, compliments of the rook defending it. This is scary. Maybe even the rook would think about taking, so the queen and rook could work together on the 7th rank. A lot of problems here, right? However, here we have another key moment. Our bishop is hanging. We're under a lot of pressure. Do I need to react? It sure feels like it, right? We're under so much pressure. But on the other hand, look at the power of just two pieces working together, the queen and the rook. One thing I recommend psychologically, give your opponent that move as you're freaking out. How do I defend? What if you didn't have the chance to defend? Meaning, let's just pretend you play a random move, right? How bad is it if they take the pawn? Doesn't feel great, but once you crouch in the corner, where's the follow-up? Is the sky falling? No, we're doing okay. And that's important. And with that in mind, we might not need to react. Sure, we can defend this pawn, but then we lose our bishop, right? That's a double attack. On the other hand, here's the queen. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to win the game, but come on, I can't do all the work myself. I need a little help from my friends. One way we can do that basically is play rook to b6. And here we're defending our bishop and we're supporting the queen. We're threatening mate. So if you take with the rook, trying to create some mayhem here across the 7th rank, well, that's too late. This is mate. And if white does something else, like, takes with the queen, well, same story here. Crouch in the corner, right, like that. And now what? Mate is in the air, and there's not really any clear way for white to keep the game together. So I have to admit, that's a hard move to find, right? Because you have to not only see that you're, threatening mate, you also have to be cool with just kind of letting your king get attacked, using your own king as bait. Usually not the best strategy, right? But here, there's no real killer move, so we can get away with not reacting, not blinking. So anyway, the rest of the game was a crazy adventure, as most games are. And at the very end, the game was a draw, where black was in trouble, blundered, but kept a great attitude, kept fighting, and ended up harassing the king, resulting in a draw because the king wasn't able to escape the queen's attack, but there's no way to deliver a mate. So anyway, kind of a longer video today, but I hope this really encourages members of our Improvers Club. First of all, keep asking questions, right? Keep engaged, share some ideas in the forums. This was a question asked in the Ask a Coach forum, so I'm always checking there. So feel free to reach out. And also, how much can we learn from a game? I mean, it's just incredible that we learned so much from just a single game being shared by one of our members here. And the big thing is, do I need to react? Thinking about the psychological pressure of, do I need to blink? Do I need to dance to my opponent's tune, so to speak? And the other big thing is, if you're trying to win the one game, perhaps the reason you're not yet winning is your pieces are not, winning together, right? They're not playing together. Or the defense is doing a really good job working together, and we need to break down their harmony, right? And so hopefully these are some ideas you can use in your own games. And I wish you all the best of luck in your continued chess adventure. And I hope to hear from you soon in our Improvers Club. Well, that's it for now. National Master Dane Matson signing out.